Hey, this is Wilson. No Jason Wolf this week, as always. No Galvez either. And of course, I'm joined by the great Jason Big Mitch Mitchell and the great Shane Christopher Murray. We also this week have on a special guest who I'll get to in a second. But before that, just a few reminders. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button next to the Complete Lakers podcast. If you prefer the audio version, remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts. The show is also on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and every other major podcatcher. Make sure to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at TC Pod Network, and to like it on Facebook. Just search for the Complete Lakers podcast. Finally, send feedback and mailbag questions to Complete Lakers podcast at gmail.com. Let's get into our guest. This guy is he's a professional. He's one of the expert Lakers analysts on the Lakers Nation podcast network, which they're the standard by which all Lakers podcasts are judged. Trevor Lane has been doing it for a long time. He built his platform first with and now on YouTube with the podcast throughout the week. Like I said, they're the standard by which all Lakers podcasts are judged. And of course, Trevor Lane and Lakers Nation, one of the good people they were, without the help of talented people like Matthew Peralta. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, nice to be on with you guys. Appreciate y'all. Really nice welcome. Really appreciate that. It's been a crazy off season, huh?
It's crazy, to say the least.
A little bit, yeah.
I think we wanted to start off. It's not perhaps directly Lakers news, but it's news that does pertain to the Lakers as far as being a domino that affects everything else that happens. Today, the report came out that Kevin Durant met with the owner of the Nets and said that basically he gave I think it's Joe Tsai. He gave him an ultimatum. It's either you keep KD, you keep me, or you keep Sean Marks and Steve Nash. KD pretty much putting it on the table straight like that. Matthew, what were your thoughts when you saw that news report, and how do you think it affects the Lakers in a sort of roundabout way as far as the Kyrie Irving possible trade that's kind of sitting there right now, kind of dormant, with KD saying that? How do you think that affects things?
The first thought was thank God. I've been telling people for, since the beginning of free agency and the offseason really was that we weren't going to see a move on Kyrie Irving to the Lakers until Kevin Durant got moved. I think every team's been kind of waiting for that domino to fall, like you mentioned up the top here. And so for him to basically go to Joe Tsai directly and say, you know what, I've been sitting here for a month. I told you I wanted out. I'm telling you guys again, I want out. It's either that or you fire basically your front office and coaching staff. For Joe Tsai to come back publicly and say, I support the front office and the coaching staff, basically tells me that I think a trade's going to get done here before training camp starts. And so as far as the Lakers are concerned, if Kevin Durant finally gets moved, the move we've all been waiting for, I think it finally opens up the door for a Kyrie Irving deal. That's obviously the most Laker-related tie there. But I also think it's good for the rest of the league, because I think every other team has been looking at, what moves can we make with our roster spots, and can we jump in on a 3-team deal and get some assets back and take some contracts. So I think this is going to be good for the league ultimately, but I think particularly for the Lakers, they finally get to chase after the point guard we've all been trying to get for the past month now. But what I'm curious what you guys think. Like I'm pretty excited. I think we're starting to see some stuff moving in free agency and in the market. But what do you guys think about Kevin Durant's little request today?
Shane?
Who wants to go first? Shane going first? Go for it, Shane.
First.
Talk to the people.
Optic-wise, it's like, really, KD, the guy that you picked as your coach, you and Kyrie handpicked, you don't want him, you want him out like that just now. But And the Lakers heads like, yes, finally we get to make some moves.
Well,
but my thinking now is possibly. But my thinking now is like, if KD gets traded and they get the haul they're looking for, are they really gonna make us give up 2 first-round picks for Kyrie after getting whatever they get after KD? And if so, is Joe Harris or Seth Curry gonna be in the deal? And if not, are you cool with giving out 2 first-round picks for just Kyrie instead of doing the Indiana deal? So that's where I'm at with it. But I would love to get Kyrie. Okay.
Well, so I gotta restate it for Matt right here. My official position is that I hope that we keep Russell Westbrook.
Okay.
And we run it back.
Okay.
I know I'm in the minority amongst Laker Nation on this, but that is my official position.
Okay.
What Shane, piggybacking off of what Shane was saying, I mean, I bet they're gonna want more than 2 picks for Kyrie. And I said it a couple weeks ago, the Wolves messed up the market.
They did.
They got 5 or 6 picks for Rudy Gobert.
Yep.
So I mean, I feel like that's really what's kind of holding it up on Kyrie. And for KD, you got to get like 10 picks for KD.
Everything.
If you got 5 for right, like have all of our picks. Matter of fact,
at least 3 core players at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Kevin Durant, right, is like even after this news, I saw some people saying that maybe teams are going to be more hesitant to give up stuff, but I don't really think that's the case. It's Kevin Durant, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a team that trades for Kevin Durant's instantly a title contender for at least the next year or 2 at minimum. So that's still going to cost you a lot, but I do think this probably makes a deal more likely. There's no way I think Brooklyn can go into the season and even training camp for that matter with this hanging over their heads. It's just too much of a distraction. That's all they're going to be talking about. And I think Joe Tsai and the fans are pretty tired of this whole, what are we going to do with Kevin Durant? What are we going to do with Kyrie Irving? I think they want a fresh start. And honestly, I think that's probably best for the Brooklyn Nets at this point, is to just hit refresh and then just run it back with the young guys that they have on their roster right now.
Yeah, when I first saw the report, my first thinking was, if I were Joseph Tsai, I would basically, what he ended up saying is the same thing I would have said. I wouldn't let Kevin Durant, who, and I don't mean to be overly critical or be like some people on Twitter who are like, just bash the guy. But I look at him, he's not a leader. He'll be 34 years old, I think, next month or so, before the end of the year. He's a player who, like I said, he's not the type of player to me at this point in his career, who I would let hold me hostage the way that he's trying to. And of course, make no mistake, he's one of the top 15 or 20 greatest players of all time. Mm-hmm. But as far as being somebody you can say, okay, Kevin, you're the leader, and this all falls on you if it goes poorly. He's somebody who's shown, I think, in his career that he doesn't even really want to be in that position. Of course, like anybody would want him on their team, but when he was 27, 28, he could hold up the basketball world like that. But I would say at this point in his career, I would take the position that Joseph Tsai is taking. And as far as the Lakers, Matthew, and how it affects them, I've been in the position that it doesn't really make a difference. And I want your thoughts on this, because I've been telling the guys this, in recent weeks, that I feel like in the modern game, it's not so much about top-end talent as much as it is about top-end talent that fits the way the modern game is played. And I was thinking about this Memphis team and how well they played without John Morant, who's one of the top 10 players in the league. And I think it's just that they're constructed in the way you look at their team on paper and you go, why is this team with a bunch of role players? Say that again?
You look at their roster and you're like, who he play for?
Yeah, like why are these guys 25-5 without John Morant? And even when Morant got hurt in the playoffs, they still gave Golden State a run for their money. And I just think it's the way that their team is constructed. It's so built for the modern game that it doesn't really matter that when he's not out there that they only have basically a team of role players or non-all-stars. So I think whether it's Russell Westbrook or Kyrie Irving, I just look at the teams that the Lakers would have to contend with, and I think that their rosters are more optimized for the modern game. And the real thing, I think Shane mentioned last week, that it's still on the table, a possible trade with Indiana, Westbrook for Buddy Hield, and Miles Turner. And as I said last week, that was what I would be more interested in, being more well-rounded, having somebody like Hield, a three-point shooter, Miles Turner, one of those bigs who can play side to side and defend the rim, how he would play alongside AD. But I just wanted to know, your take on that. In your opinion, is it still as important as it used to be to have a so-called big three that everybody's always chasing, or is it more important to have maybe a team that, like I said, some bigs who can move side to side, three-point shooters, teams that are just basically their rosters are optimized for the modern game?
No, I think it's an interesting debate and argument to have, really. I personally lean on the depth side as well. I think you're starting to see it more now in the past couple of seasons, that the team with more role players, more competent guys into playoffs that you can feasibly throw out there, play 20-25 minutes. I think that's generally what you're looking for in role players nowadays. If you don't have, superstars like LeBron and AD. So I definitely get the argument for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield if that's the trade you want to go for. I'm definitely not opposed to it if that ends up being the plan B. But I do think that for the Lakers particularly, trading for Kyrie Irving in the best case scenario, I think it raises your ceiling a little bit, just having, someone that can score and handle the ball as well as he does, and LeBron doesn't have to carry the load quite as often. We did see that work in the 2020 team. So if that ends up being the case where he has to be the point guard and handle the ball all the time, so be it. But I think getting Kyrie Irving in the Lakers jersey is probably the best ceiling option. And then there's also the AD piece and post LeBron, right? So say LeBron retires after next season or whatever, he leaves and plays with Bronny, wherever else. Having someone like Kyrie Irving on your roster with Anthony Davis extends your window hypothetically. And I think that's kind of how the Lakers are looking at this is, okay, we get Kyrie Irving, we can compete for next season and this season. But then if LeBron ends up leaving, we still have two superstars we can build around and still be competitive. Because that's the thing with the Lakers, right? They don't rebuild traditionally, they reload. They go get the other star. And I think Kyrie Irving in this case would fit the bill. But yeah, I mean, as far as how important it is to have a big three versus depth, I definitely lean the depth argument, especially for a younger team like this Lakers team. But I feel like, we're kind of quibbling a little bit because you do ultimately have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. At the end of the day, there are like 28, 27 other teams that would kill to have those two on their team and to build around them. So I really think it's a good problem to have here. And I think the Lakers are, if they're able to pull off a deal for Kyrie, they're in a pretty good spot. Or if they're able to pull off something like Indiana or even something like Utah, where they get pieces back and round out the roster that way with some more shooting, I think that roster makes a lot of sense.
Okay. I wanted to ask you mentioned the role players. I was saying last week, Mitch had a great line. He said that in order to be a championship team, you need star role players, or at least players who are stars in their roles.
Right.
And we, of course, grew up. I mean, when we were, I don't know how old you are, Matthew, but when Mitch and Shane and I were kids, our first teams, we were in middle school when the Shaq, Kobe Lakers were winning titles.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's, of course, Rick Fox, Robert Horry, Eric Fisher, Ryan Shaw, Ron Harper, Horace Grant, some of the best role players you could possibly think of, right?
That's right.
And then even, the Kobe Gasol teams, you still had your Derek Fisher, Trevor Ariza.
LO. Yep.
Yeah.
I know.
Some of these guys are kind of overqualified, I would say, to be role players. But outside of the two Hall of Famers at the top, Kobe and Gasol, you have some really high-end guys who were Mitch said, they were stars in their roles. So I wonder about this team though. If you look at Lonnie Walker and Troy Brown and Thomas Bryant, then you think you compare that to the names that we just ran through. are those the type of guys who can round out a championship roster? Because as I was saying last week, I don't think they are.
No, I'm actually glad you brought this up because this is something I've been talking to Trevor and the guys a little bit about both offline and online, especially in our streams recently. It's just it's a thought exercise. It's say the roster is how it is right now, right? Like how comfortable are you throwing out some of these guys in the last 4 or 5 minutes of a playoff game right now? I got to like maybe 5 players, but most championship teams have at least 7, 8 guys that you trust to be in high leverage moments. Like just look at this past finals, right? The Celtics obviously had Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, but then they had way good, like overqualified role players, like you said, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Robert Williams, Derek White, those kinds of guys. The Warriors, they had a bunch of role guys that played heavy minutes for them. So, you look at this Lakers team and you kind of look at it and you go, like, these guys are probably good in the regular season. Like, these guys will be able to soak up minutes and take the load off a little bit, but come the playoffs, like, how much do I trust them, And I think the issue is that it's a lot of young, unproven guys on minimum deals for just this year. Lonnie Walker is a pretty decent gamble, on that taxpayer mid-level, but, he hasn't played big games. He's 23, has a suspect outside shot, doesn't play much defense. Troy Brown Jr., kind of the opposite, can't really shoot or score on his own, but decent defender. Thomas Bryant, stretch big, great. Damian Jones, rim center, okay. Like, these guys, like, in general, are like not bad role players to have on your team, but like, I don't think they could be your 4th, 5th best guys. Like, these are your bench guys you're talking about. So I think that's why I've been saying all offseason the Lakers aren't done making moves, because they know they need to add some depth here. And I think that's why Kyrie Irving is the play for them, is just because if your role players aren't, that quality of like championship caliber role player, then you probably need an extra star to help carry the load a little bit extra. So yeah, I think right now the Lakers at best right now, before any deal's done, they're probably like closer to a play-in team than a solid play-in team or playoff team. They make a deal like Indiana, they trade for Kyrie Irving, they get pieces from Utah, whoever. You're probably looking at like maybe a 4 or 5 seed at best. So, not title contention, but in there in the playoff mix, just not like at the upper echelon of teams. Because you look at both conferences next season, like Golden State's not going anywhere, Boston's still here, Philadelphia reloaded, Miami's a wild card every year. Milwaukee is going to be healthy, presumably. And then you got the Western Conference, Golden State, Memphis, Denver, the Clippers. Just keep going down the list. So the Lakers are already pretty behind right now. And these next couple of weeks is going to say a lot about the roster, I feel like.
Yeah. And I know you got to get out of here in a few minutes, but I just wanted to ask about, there's another story that came out where basically, I guess LeBron met with the Lakers front office within the last few days, and they had, I guess Rich Paul said they had fruitful discussions that they'll revisit. I mean, I know you can't really get inside the head of LeBron James, but we've all watched him over the years. I know Mitch was talking about like his psyche in like a recent episode. He kind of does the same thing every time. Right. What do you think LeBron is thinking right now as far as his contract situation? Of course, he'll be a free agent next summer unless he signs an extension. What do you think LeBron is thinking? Is he doing the usual LeBron thing where he's kind of holding the Lakers' feet to his team's feet to the fire to see what they do before he commits? What do you think LeBron is he and Rich are up to right now?
I think it's probably just that, like Kevin Durant's news is probably going to accelerate things. And this is another thing for the Lakers, right? If Kevin Durant gets moved, the Lakers are able to make a move. Then probably LeBron's like, all right, we got the deal done. I'll re-sign now. I think it's a little bit of pressure just to try to move along discussions between the Lakers and other teams, whether it's for Kyrie Irving, whether it's for the Indiana for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, whether it's another team that maybe we haven't talked about. But I do think that, ultimately LeBron is thinking, I'm going to end up re-signing. It's just a matter of, do I like the moves you make in the next couple of weeks or months before I ultimately commit? Like, it's just more of like fast tracking it versus is he going to or not? Because I mean, if I'm LeBron James, right? Like, I know I want to win titles, but my family's super comfy in Los Angeles. We just saw that video this past week of his sons practicing in the Lakers facility. You don't see that very often. I think the relationship between them, you don't, right? Like, I know superstars get privileges and whatnot, but to see your own kids just using your own training facility, like you really don't see that. So yeah. I think for the most part, the relationship between the two sides are good this past season, notwithstanding. I think the Lakers have done basically almost everything he's asked for. So unlike Kevin Durant, I don't think he has much to complain about. Plus, he has the benefit of having won the title with the team already. So I think, if LeBron cares about his legacy, I think the best thing for him is to stay in Los Angeles, try to turn around. Think about it this way. Like, it's a good story, right? Like, the Lakers win a title, they go through a couple rough patches, they have this season, and then he somehow leads them to another title in the next year or two. That's a good way to go out on top. And then, for the Lakers fans, if LeBron brings home another title, no one's going to care. Or they're not going to be upset, or they shouldn't be upset if he decides to go play with Bronny somewhere else. I think all the signs point to LeBron staying ultimately. I think it's just really a matter of how fast does he sign it. That's probably the better question, but I'm not concerned at all about him like going to somewhere like Cleveland, which I know was like rumored about. Oh, they've got cap space, a young roster, they can compete if he joins. I don't really buy that too much. I ultimately think he's going to be a Laker for at least the next year or two.
Okay. You guys got any other questions for Matthew Peralta? I know he has to get prepared for his.
I got a quick question.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
So going back to Darvin Ham, like he, as far as coaches say, he got guys that he had from out there with from Atlanta and Milwaukee days. But I was wondering, are you surprised they haven't really gone after anybody, as far as players go, to go on the roster from the Atlanta and Milwaukee system? And if not, the outputting thing that's going to be as far as like the team learning the system.
Right. No, it's a good question. I feel like there probably could have been some veteran options from those Atlanta and Milwaukee teams that they could have gone after. But I think the Lakers, first and foremost, were really prioritizing youth and athleticism. You guys watched the same season I did. That team was old. That team was slow. It was just hard for them to keep up for all 48 minutes. Right. So, as much as Darvin probably wanted some guys he's familiar with that he's coached personally from his other stops, I ultimately think it was just let's build the roster out in a way that we know we can compete and be athletic on a nightly basis and make sure we're not losing in those areas. And then we'll just figure out the system stuff. So I'm not too surprised. I think it's really just the market too, like what was available and who got what in terms of money, deals and stuff, and opportunity, really. I'm not too concerned about them not going after players he's worked with. I ultimately think he'll be just fine with the guys they have. So for the most part, I'm okay with the off season. I think it's just not done yet. I think, again, this whole Kevin Durant thing, it all comes back down to Kevin Durant, right? It's that moves are going to start happening soon. Dominoes are going to stop falling. Hopefully we see more trades, more player movement, and we finally see what this roster is going to look like for training camp. So it's really just worth seeing. I think today was a really good step, though, and I'm excited to see what happens the next couple of weeks here.
Same here.
Mitch, you got anything else for Matthew? Or?
Yeah, I gotta,
I know he has to
show my Russell Westbrook.
Oh no, don't worry about it. I got you. Yeah, what's up?
Cool. Yeah, I just want to show my Russell Westbrook bias one more time as a Russell Westbrook question.
Sure.
Okay, let's be honest. He had a terrible season. We all know it. I know it. He had a terrible season. If no matter where he plays, whether it's on the Lakers or he gets traded to Indiana or wherever, if he has another terrible season, could you see him being out the league after that?
Ooh, yeah. This is a parlor game for the Lakers Nation staff. Is what's Westbrook's next team and what's his contract look like? I mean, look, let's be honest. If he has another bad season like this one, as hard as that would be, I think he's just too talented for a team not to take some sort of swing on him. I'll tell you right now, he's not going to make anything close to 47 million ever again after this season. Like I think yeah, I think that ship sailed. But look, for all the warts and all the problems and all the distractions that happened this season, he's still a talented guy. He still has the athleticism very clearly. I know the decision making has been very suspect, so is the defense, but I mean, you get him in open transition, he's still a terror. He can handle the ball well. He can still handle your offense for the most part. He's a good defensive rebounding guard, which I really like. I think some team is going to talk themselves into gambling on him on a cheap, low risk deal and see how it goes from there. So I don't think he'll be quite out of the league, but I will say though that I think it's going to be really contingent on him accepting a lesser role, because whatever team signs him, he's probably not coming in and taking the starting job right away. He's going to have to compete for it, because you look around the league, there aren't a lot of spots for point guards right now. There aren't a lot of starting jobs. I think teams are either developing young guys for the future, or they have their point guard to compete now. Russell Westbrook, if you're adding him, you probably want to try and win now. You're probably not bringing him to mentor rookies or young guys. You probably, if you sign him, presumably you want him to play heavy minutes. So it's a tough question, man. I feel like he's not going to be out of the league. That's my gut. But I do think that he's not going to have the same kind of role that he's accustomed to for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember hearing you say that, saying that he probably wouldn't be used as a mentor to a younger point guard. It makes me think of when Allen Iverson was at the end of his run.
That's the comp. Yeah.
He said he would rather retire than be just another dude.
That's right. Yeah.
And man, it's crazy. But we saw Westbrook, and he still has those springs, but sometimes it's just, I don't know. He physically he seems the same.
I mean, you never know. I mean, like he was doing a good job mentoring the summer pro league team.
That's right.
I wasn't expecting him to be on the bench doing that. So maybe he's that's a start or something. I don't know. But
yeah, I just think
he wouldn't do that.
I just think summer league when he's not playing versus the regular season when he's supposed to be playing. Probably two different situations. But to your point, he's been good. He's been a good teammate. I'll say that. He's been a great teammate. Everyone that plays with him in previous stops have always sworn by him. So I think he has that going for him for sure. I don't think he's like a locker room cancer or a bad locker room guy. I just really think that playing for the Lakers specifically, when things go bad, it's like magnified times 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I've said this on so many shows of ours on the Lakers Nation podcast and live streams, is that I don't think this last season was entirely his fault. Like I think it's disingenuous to say that. Do I think he has a pretty, not even do I think he has like a pretty decent chunk of the blame to hold? Absolutely. But like, it's the front office, it's Jeannie, it's Rob. I think LeBron and AD have some sort of blame to take. It's a whole bunch of things, man. So if Westbrook ends up on a different team and plays and, isn't with the Lakers anymore, I'm still going to wish him well. Like, I don't want to see guys get out of the league. I don't like seeing good players like him, even though he's way past his prime, like I don't want to see him out of the league like Carmelo. Like I still want to see him like playing. So, it's tough. It's a really hard situation. And I think for both sides, I think that's why, aside from the roster and trying to get better and get players in, I think it's just better for both sides to part ways. I think they just both need a fresh start. So this past season, what happened. I think we just got to move on. It's like a bad breakup. You know what I mean? Like it's just time to cut ties and move on and get on with your life. You know what I'm saying?
I felt that.
Yeah, man. It's like, no, it's not personal with me and Russ. And I know for a lot of Lakers fans, it's really personal. For me, it's not. It's just like, look, this season didn't work out. I saw it on the floor. The fit's not good. That's it. I don't think that we got to assassinate his character or diminish what he's done in his career. He's still obviously a Hall of Fame player. It's just, I don't think like the end of his career is going to be with the Lakers, or I don't think it should be. I just think he needs to go somewhere where he can be more comfortable and be maximized to his full potential. And I just don't think that's going to happen when you have LeBron and AD on your team.
All right, Matthew, we're going to let you get out of here, man. We want to thank you again for coming on. True professional, a true expert. This guy is going places. He's gonna be around for a long time, following the Lakers and talking about the Lakers, man. And so we want to thank you for coming on. You want to plug your social media and tell me, where to put, of course, the Lakers Nation and your byline and stuff like that?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, no, and before I say anything, thanks for having me. It's honestly a pleasure to be on a Lakers podcast and talk Lakers with fellow fans and analysts. This part of the offseason is generally pretty slow, but thankfully, because of the Brooklyn Nets, we've got a lot to talk about for the past month, and it sounds like we'll be talking about this for at least the next week or so. So I really appreciate having me on. You guys do great work. You can find me at Twitter at _Matthew Peralta, Instagram at Matthew Peralta, and then you can find all my bylines and articles for Lakers Nation at LakersNation.com. I appreciate the support, guys. I appreciate the invite. If you ever need another guest or just a +1 to talk Lakers, hit me up.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Have a great night. Good luck.
Yeah, appreciate y'all, man. Have a good one.
All right,
you too.
You too.
Now, Shane, fix your camera, man. Your camera is turned to the a banter. That's a kind of company, man. What's wrong with you?
For real, man. Good Lord. Come on, man.
Look
You're
at
better
this.
than this.
Shame.
I put it in landscape. The hell?
Jeez.
For shame.
I'm glad
You
you
didn't
said
look-
it, Anto, because, man, I was like, oh, this man's camera is sideways. We got Matthew Peralta here. He's a real professional. Shane Murray,
You welcome.
recording sideways. I'm like, what is this guy doing?
You
Man.
didn't say you couldn't look into the screen and see that the camera was on. What's wrong with you?
Whatever.
You don't care about it?
Whatever.
Oh, hold on. Wait. And another thing that I noticed, he got his damn do-rag on today.
Oh, yeah,
This guy.
he was better than had that do-rag on Matthew Peralta in there.
Yeah, we get one guess. All of a sudden, he finally takes his do-rag off. Oh, my gosh. I don't know if I should, be like proud or insulted that he won't take his do-rag off for us.
Yeah.
Hey. My goodness.
Yo.
Jesus Christ.
Huh? Shane.
Say,
What's up?
Okay. Yeah, it's not Shane. It's, every week it's something with Shane. Shane. Okay, so just we won't spend too much more time talking, but just we got Matthew's take on the recent news, which is LeBron extension, and then of course the KD thing. So I mean, I know we've kind of talked about it. I guess this officially, Shane, what do you think LeBron is thinking? He and Rich. Do you agree with Matthew Peralta that he's just doing the typical LeBron thing in terms of just kind of, like I said, holding his team's feet to the fire instead of committing, and then they don't have to really hold themselves, accountable for the decisions that they make or don't make. What's your take on the meeting that he had with the Lakers this weekend and the report that came out of that?
I think it's a mixture of that. But I also think he's still trying to figure out what type of deal that he wants to do, because like a 2+1, it's still not a 100% guarantee. Bronny's gonna come straight to the league. Like he's getting recruited by a couple of schools. You know what I'm saying? You might want to join his homeboys from his high school and play ball with them. He could play semi-pro somewhere in the G League or something like that. So that's still up in the air. And plus, even though he's gonna be way older when he come on, but Bryce is still on his way too. So I think he's still trying to figure out what type of deal he's trying to do, but also keeping in mind that I want you guys to keep trying to make a championship roster. But I don't see no signs of him leaving. Like, he's getting more and more immersed in LA culture, like from playing at the Drew League to giving that shout out to Vin Scully. You know what I'm saying? He's starting to like come out to LA more, which I'm surprised. It's like I said, he's been in Brentwood so long, like waiting for him to get out, and he's getting out more. So I don't see him leaving. It's just a matter of what type of deal that he wants to do, given his age, thinking about Bronny and Bryce, his family, and what the team's going to look like. And also, too, by the way, let me add this, because Laker Nation was talking about this Friday. If he does sign, as far as salary cap wise, we will go from $60 million to $20 million next summer, and which limits our chance to get any major free agents next summer if they happen to become available. So maybe that's something on his mind too, given that he does got Clutch Sports, and got to think all those accounts. Plus, considering what James Harden did, I don't think he would never do. But it's all type of factors involved in his decision.
Mitch?
Let's see. Well, yeah, I think LeBron is just he's in kind of like wait and see mode, but I definitely think he does want to get paid one last time. I think that's all. Aside from like the Hollywood aspect of being in LA, playing for the Lakers, I think he saw how we treated Kobe at the end of his career, and I think that was a big factor in why he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll come to LA," because Kobe got that big contract towards the end, and I think LeBron looked at that and he was like, "Well, I don't see any other team really doing that. Maybe I'll just come on to LA and get one more big payday." So I think that, I think he does want to. I don't think he'll do like the James Harden thing either. I think, he, just one more big payday from the NBA, and he'll write out his endorsements. I mean, the man's already a billionaire, but I think he still wants that one last payday. So, but I mean, I saw a report that a deal is pretty much imminent. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't see him leaving either. I don't see him leaving.
And I want to ask you guys about Bronny and Bryce, since they came up, because Bronny to me plays like, I don't know, Bronny plays like somebody who doesn't really, Bronny doesn't have that dog in him to me. Bronny plays like somebody who's already rich, basically, and whereas Bryce, as I said, Bryce has that dog in him, and Bryce doesn't play like his dad is a billionaire. Like if you watch Bryce, Bryce plays, man. He's got the swagger and the confidence that his older brother doesn't have. Do you guys see the same thing I see? Because of course there was a lot of hype around Bronny for years, and now it's kind of starting to die down. But he's getting better. But to me, his weakness is not because it's not. I mean, skill wise, he has it, but he's just sort of, like I said, he doesn't have the mentality of a star basketball player. But Bryce seems to have it. Do you guys see the same thing that I see? I'll start with Mitch on this one.
I was gonna let Shane Murray take that one. I don't know too much of that. I haven't seen I think like a lot of people, I've only seen like the good highlights. So from what I've seen, they both look like the best players coming out of, everywhere. Like they look like top prospects of all time, like according to the highlights I see, but yeah, I haven't like studied their games super hard like that. So I'll let the man Shane Murray take that.
So as far as Bronny, I would say I disagree. Bronny has a lot of game. You gotta keep in mind that the school he's at, I forget the name. Sorry, well, Canyon, whatever.
Sierra Canyon.
That's basically an all-star high school squad. Like that whole squad is ranked. You know what I'm saying? They got the guy that just got picked up for UCLA. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so he's basically come on a team, even though he would normally on another team would be they start play. He's coming in to be a role player. So he has to like dial back his game and do the little things, and you get to see more of his game when he does some of these summer runs. So he actually had more game than he's showing, but at the same time too, he's also somebody, because I was watching the documentary they have on Amazon about the team. He's also somebody who's very sociable and cares about being around his friends and having an actual life. So that I feel like in terms of basketball, that's kind of like conflicting with what he's going to be, because everybody's saying he's going to go to NBA. He kind of has a feel that maybe I'll try college. Or maybe I won't play ball at all. You know what I'm saying? Even though he doesn't,
I feel like
he just has a vibe to him that he focused. Basketball is not his main focus. Whereas Bryce, I feel like Bryce is having like a growth spurt right now in terms of how he feels about the game, and he's now taller than Bronny, and he's just like he's kind of turning to the athlete LeBron is, and it's kind of like I won't like how AD jumped from like 6'3" to 6'10" in high school. It's kind of like that. Similar. He's kind of getting his body already, and he's starting to fill in the necessary spots to see where he's at. But he still got ways to grow. So it's just going to be a journey with those two.
As far as Bronny is concerned, I feel like you just made Anthos' point where you're like, oh, he's more concerned about other things. And that transfers into your game where you don't see that dog. So I feel like you just proved Anthos' point that he doesn't have that dog in his game because he's, hey, who knows? Maybe I'll stay in college. Maybe I won't even play basketball. That transfers into your game where you don't see that that super fight in their game. So I feel like you kind of proved Anthos' point on that on Bronny at least.
Personality, I can see that, but he does have some moments where it's like we say, okay, it's there. It's just he's more conscious of the world as opposed to he's not obsessed with hoops.
That's the point. That's the point. You got to be obsessed. If you're not obsessed, you don't have that dog in you, and that's the point. Like, there's a lot of players that were, I think, literally, this is so random, but off the top of my head, probably like a guy like Andrew Bynum, who was really good at basketball, but he didn't love it, and you could tell. He got really good, really fast, and he's really tall and really big. But he didn't love the game, and it.
We gotta remember too with Bynum, he didn't start playing until like a junior and senior year of high school. So
exactly.
he still like whatever and learning about it at the same time becoming pro. So
exactly, he didn't love it. He wasn't obsessed with it. He was really good at it. He knew he could make money off of it. And I'm sure he enjoyed being really good at it too, but he didn't have that. He didn't have that, just that fire inside of him to be great for a long period of time.
Right.
So
Bronny, I feel like it's there with Bronny, but he turns it off. Like I feel like it's there with Bronny, but he turns it off.
That's just he doesn't have the obsession. I mean, it is what it is, and that's fine because he's rich. So
yeah.
Well, LeBron's rich. Bronny's not rich. Sorry, LeBron is rich. My bad.
Bynum. It's weird because we know he worked on his game, right? Because he went from being just when he first came in, he was just tall and huge and bigger than everybody. And then by the time he was, he made the All-Star team, he was like the best post player in the league. But you saw, eventually it got to the point where after he left the Lakers, he basically just didn't really. I was like, he never played again. Like he didn't care. He'd be in the stands with his freaking afro, and he
got hurt bowling. Like what? What? Oh my gosh! I still can't believe it. He got hurt bowling. He never played again.
He's kind of injury prone too. I noticed that about him too. Because even in the documentary, he set out most of the season. Bronny.
Interesting.
So he is kind of injury prone.
Just right here at the end, I want to say because I think Matthew mentioned LeBron paid a tribute to Vin Scully. Did you guys watch the Dodgers coming up, or at any time, or were you guys baseball fans? I was when I was a kid. The Dodgers were my first love, and I would me and my dad, we went to 20 games between them when I was between the ages of probably 7 and 10 years old or something like that. and they traded Mike Piazza, and it, I actually put a curse on the Dodgers because that was like the worst thing that had happened to me at that point. I was like 9 years old. They traded Piazza right before my 10th birthday, like a week, like I think that was May 14th, 98. So I turned 10 May 22nd, 98. And I was devastated when they traded Piazza. So I kind of stopped rocking with the Dodgers in a while, but every now and then I would tune back in and listen to Vin tell his stories, and it was always just very comforting. I don't know if were you guys Dodgers fans at all? And do you have any memories of listening to Vin?
So, yeah, man. So actually, I was born a Dodgers fan. I
Interesting.
I grew up, my grandpa, he watched Dodger games religiously. So yeah, man, I grew up a Dodgers fan, but then, when I was able to form my own opinion, however, I had to go with the black actors and I became a Yankees fan, joined the evil empire. I mean, Derek Jeter, he's a biracial angel. I was also a big Ken Griffey Jr. fan. So my number 2 team was the Mariners. It kind of came down to I switched teams because I wanted to root for the black people in the league, basically. I have recently converted back. I've come back home. It's like a homecoming for me. I'm a Dodger fan again. Been to a bunch of games. Rocking the Mookie jersey, obviously. So yeah, man, I'm back home now. I'm back home now, following along with the game of baseball a little bit more now. I definitely fell off for a bit there. But yeah, I'm back following baseball again, man. So yeah, it's been a good time.
Okay.
I've always been a Dodgers fan. It actually stemmed from my dad. You guys don't know this, but he actually played softball and had his own organized softball team back in the day. And he had Dodgers playing all the time, and I became a fan. So I love Raul Mondesi, Gary Sheffield, Adrian Beltre, Eric Gagne, all those players. And it's dope to see the run they're on now. You know what I'm saying? They up about 12 games in the NLS. Mookie killing it. Trace just got back on and killing it as well. So they've been on a good run and won a World Series already. Finally, because back in the 90s, they had some horrible teams. And I sat through all of them. You know what I'm saying? So to see them on the run they are now is dope. So, and I love listening to Vin Scully. He was super cool to listen to. Him and Chick Hearn, top notch in terms of broadcasting.
Yeah, man, I love Vin. Everybody remembers, like I said, everybody remembers the Kirk Gibson home run. And what did he say? In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. But for me, my favorite Vin Scully soundbite, as I said, was on social media. When Nick Edenhart died, the pitcher for the Angels. I think this was in 2009. And Ben gets on the air during the Dodgers game, and he gives a eulogy for Nick, and it was just very touching. If you've never heard it, anybody out there who hasn't heard it, it's on SoundCloud. Go on there, search up Vin Scully, Nick Edenhart. It's very, very poetic, very heartfelt, and it was it's kind of strange. If you guys saw that, I know you guys probably saw that crash that happened on what was that on Swanson and LeBron.
Yeah, Swanson and LeBron.
Yeah, and it's just kind of highlights, because Nick Edenhart died in a car crash also, and it just kind of highlights the the randomness of life. But Ben said, man, he said if there's one thing I've learned in my all these years on this earth, is that you shouldn't waste any time trying to figure out life, because it's just completely random and absurd. So rest in peace to Vin Scully. Rest in peace, as always, to Chick Hearn. We actually passed 20 years ago, but rest in peace to Chick Hearn always. Rest in peace to all the broadcasters and media people, Alan Massengale, Joe McDonald, all the people who've entertained us over the years.
Stuart Scott.
Who else say? Stuart Scott, yeah, all those people. Because you were part of our lives and you added to our joy. So, all right. Before we get out of here, just a few more reminders. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button next to the Complete Lakers podcast. If you prefer the audio version, remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts. The show is also on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and every other major podcatcher. Make sure to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at TC Pod Network, and to like it on Facebook. Just search for the Complete Lakers podcast. And finally, send feedback and mailbag questions to Complete Lakers podcast at gmail.com. We are out.
Before we go, really quick, I just want to shout out again Matthew Peralta. And I do, again, want to apologize to Herbert. I'm sorry, we once again ran out of time.
All right, Herbert.